Hey everyone, this is going to be my first live as your Congresswoman, and waiting for some folks to join us, but really just want to give everybody an update. Want you to know what it is that's happening in Washington, D.C., want you to know what we're doing, and I want you to know what you can do. So there's been a lot. There's been a lot in the news. You know, Donald Trump was just inaugurated on the 20th of January, so it's been less than a month, and we have seen really historic, unmitigated chaos. And many of us are alarmed. I know I've been hearing from a lot of you who are alarmed, angry, frustrated, scared. I've heard from a lot of federal employees, incredible public servants who've been doing work on behalf of our country, who are confused, don't understand what's happening, why this is happening. And it feels like every time you turn on the TV, there's something new. There's some new attack on our democracy, on our institutions, on federal employees, on communities. So there's a lot to unpack. I'm not going to cover all of it, but I do want to touch base with all of you so that you know what we're doing, what I'm doing, and what you can do. But first, how did we get here? You know, like many of you, we worked hard last year to avoid this, avoid the catastrophic outcome of an election where Republicans have control of every lever of government. They have the White House, they have the Senate, they have the House of Representatives, and Democrats are in the minority. And if you follow government, you know that whoever's in the majority, in other words, whoever controls the House, the Senate, and the White House, whoever has the majority controls everything. And the minority party has fewer tools, fewer options. So that's where we are today, with Democrats in the minority in all of those branches. So what is going on? We've heard a lot about Doge. We've heard a lot about Elon Musk. Well, I think it's really important to say this very plainly. While Donald Trump and Elon Musk claim that they are all about creating efficiency and transparency, this is not about either one of those things. There's zero truth to the fact that they want to create a more efficient, transparent government. And how do I know that? Because Donald Trump fired 18 inspectors general. And for those of you at home who don't know what an inspector general is, those are the independent government watchdogs who expose corruption and fraud, waste, and abuse. He fired all of them. So this is not about finding corruption. This is not about creating efficiency. This is not about making federal government better. What is it about? It's about eliminating as many jobs as possible. It's about eliminating as many programs as possible. Why? Not to do away with that funding, not to send you that funding back, not to make your life easier. It's so that they can shift that money to tax cuts for billionaires. Okay, so this is not about giving you anything or making anything better for you. This is about making billionaires even richer. That's all this is about. And in fact, right now, Republicans are at the White House talking through their strategy about how to accomplish this. But they tell you it's about efficiency, and then they give you examples, like we heard from the White House press secretary the other day. Oh, they found that one of the government entities was spending millions of dollars sending condoms to Gaza. That's a lie. They are lying to the American public in order to make the American public believe they're finding all of these tidbits and factoids of, places where money is going that should offend you. And let me tell you, I am all in on creating efficiency. I'm all in on saving money. I'm all in on rooting out corruption, but that's not what this is about. So that's what's happening. What are we doing about it? And as I mentioned at the top of this conversation, we are in the minority party. So we have fewer tools and fewer options than those in the majority party. But here's what we are doing. And it's really focused on three main areas. The first is litigation. And believe me, I know that lawsuits are not, they don't respond as quickly to the sense of urgency that we all have, but they are really a very effective way to stop what Elon Musk and what Donald Trump are doing. And so we've been working with outside partners because, believe it or not, we can't sue ourselves. So we can't sue, we don't have standing to sue the federal government. So it has to be outside groups, organizations, or governments. And we've been working closely with those folks who are bringing successful lawsuits to stop some of this. In fact, there have been some recent announcements about where these lawsuits have been very effective in stopping some of this. So litigation is one of those avenues. Another avenue is legislation. The problem with legislation, and believe me, there's some great bills that are being drafted and filed. The problem with that is because we are in the minority, we're not going to get many of those bills to the floor because Republicans will get to decide which bills get to the floor. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And we're using committees to also point out to the American public, to sound the alarm what's going on. And to show the American public who's with them and who's not. If you saw any clips on Instagram or Twitter yesterday of the Oversight Committee, where the Oversight Committee members were demanding that we subpoena Elon Musk and have him come to Congress and explain himself, Republicans fell all over themselves to stop that. And so we have to push back through our committees, through legislative processes, and on the House floor, even though we are in the minority. The last, or not the last, but the third avenue of action that I want to talk to you all about, because this takes all of us, is sounding the alarm and being loud. We have to make sure that we are shouting from the rooftops about what's happening, what's going on, in part because, believe it or not, there are a lot of Americans who don't, know what's going on, or who may not, want to check in and find out what's going on in politics and in government. But there are also a lot of Americans who subscribe to, certain social media platforms and podcasters and watch certain cable news, or I wouldn't call them news, but certain cable news outlets where there is a cesspool of misinformation and disinformation, basically lies sent out to the American people constantly. So we have to speak out loudly and forcefully about the truth in order to try to counter those lies that are being told to the American people every minute of every day. And we have to make noise. That's why this week I've been joining protesters as they've gathered in front of these agencies that Elon Musk and Doge have tried to take over and have successfully taken over, like the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Labor. And believe it or not, that pushback and that action is making a difference. Yesterday, for example, Elon Musk was going to send his group of 19 and 20-year-olds who are part of his Doge movement into the Department of Labor in order to get into all their information. Well, when they found out we were going, they ended up not going, and they had a virtual meeting. So we stopped them actually from going into the building. That may not seem like a huge victory, but I use that as an example of where the pushback is important, wherever we can. When Donald Trump and his administration announced that there would be a federal funding freeze. Many of us pushed back. Many of you pushed back. And we pushed back in the courts. And that has put that on pause, saving that money that is going into communities. With his tariffs, there was huge pushback. And he had to make a quick deal with Mexico and Canada where they agreed to things they had already done before or announced before, so that he could claim some kind of victory, but he didn't enact the tariffs. And those tariffs, we know, would have hurt everybody in our pocketbook. There are other examples of where the pushback is working. And so we have to keep that up. We in Congress are thinking of even more strategies to engage in, to continue pushing back, elevating the voices of our federal workforce, pointing out to the American people how detrimental all of this is and how regular folks will be negatively impacted and even hurt by what Donald Trump is doing. And all the while, by the way, price of eggs is going up, cost of living isn't getting better. They are not fulfilling their promise of making day-to-day life more affordable for you. And so I'm going to close with this. First of all, thank you for following along. Really appreciate it. I am going to continue to do as much as possible to push back, to stop them, to put guardrails in place, to obstruct the damage they're trying to do to our country, to our democracy, to our institutions, to our communities. We are going to do everything possible. I need you all to stay engaged. Call the White House. They have, a switchboard. Use your voice to make sure that the White House knows how angry or upset you are, how frustrated you are, and that you want him to keep his promise that he said on day one he would make the cost of living easier and better for you and would improve your life. For those of us in districts like mine, I'm a Democratic rep fighting for all of you, but we've got 2 Republican U.S. senators. Call them. Make sure they know how you feel and what you expect of them. Far too often, when I encourage people to reach out to our Republican senators, people say, why bother? They don't listen to me. Well, then they don't get a phone call. They don't get an email. They don't hear from you, and you make it easier for them. We cannot make it easy for them to do what they're doing. So I'm going to keep you posted. This is real transparency, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you all. We are in this for the long haul, and every single day we are going to be fighting for you. Thanks, you all. Take care.